the music not playing? Hello? Why did it mute? Why are you not... Wait, I can't hear it. Oh, that's because I don't have my headphones on. That's fine. It wouldn't be one of my streams if I didn't have some technical issues. Such as ping cord not working. Oh. There it is. It's a little different. It's something I've actually considered doing a couple times. But as I've put in my description, I am not the greatest at reading out loud, so I'm gonna have to forgive any mistakes or anything. Also adjusting the music stuff. There it is. Hi, Damien. I'm gonna be reading to you. No, it's gonna be really weird seeing me being calm. Alright. I have my big old book of Brothers Grimm fairy tales here. And wow, my model is all up and personal. I'm gonna shrink you a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit up and personal. And then we have Archie down here. I'll make an something for him for these. Music sounds good. Alright. Everything sounds good on your end? Put this back on charge. I had a lot of cords wrapped around me for a second. Yes, Why do you not work with me, OBS? Okay, I think I'm ready. Gotta find where I'm gonna open them. There it is. Here's page 1. The Frog King, or Iron Hendry. In old times, when wishing still helped one, there lived a king whose daughters were all beautiful, but the youngest was so beautiful that the sun itself, which has seen so much, was astonished whenever it shone in her face. Close by the king's castle lay a great dark forest under an old lime tree in the And under an old lime tree in the forest was a well, and when that day was very warm, the king's child went out into the forest and sat down by the side of the cool fountain, and when she was dull she took a golden ball and threw it up on high and caught it, and this ball was her favorite plaything. Now it so happened that on one occasion the princess's golden ball did not fall into the little hand which she was holding up for it, but onto the ground beyond, and rolled straight into the water. The king's daughter followed it with her eyes, but it vanished, and the well was deep, so deep that the bottom could not be seen. On this she began to cry, and cried louder and louder, and could not be comforted. And she thus lamented. Someone said to her, let me make the music volume a little quieter. Alright. Is that good? Well, I need something to track where I'm reading. I have a popsicle stick on my desk that I'll use. I have a popsicle stick. Oh god, where was I? And as she thus lamented, someone said to her, what ails thee, king's daughter? Thou weepest so that even a stone would show pity. She looked around to the side from whence the voice came, and saw a frog stretching forth its thick, ugly head from the water. Ah, old water splasher, is it thou? Said she. I am weeping for my golden ball, which has fallen into the well. "Be quiet, and do not weep," answered the frog. "I can help thee, but what wilt thou give me if I bring thy plaything up again?" "Whatever thou wilt have, dear frog," said she, "my clothes, my pearls and jewels, even the golden crown which I am wearing." The frog answered, "I do not care for thy clothes, thy pearls and jewels, or thy golden crown. But if thou wilt love me, and let me be thy companion and playfellow, and sit by thee at thy little table, and eat off thy little golden plate, and drink out of thy little cup, and sleep in thy little bed, if thou wilt promise me this, I will go down below and bring thee thy golden ball up again." "Oh yes," said she, I promise thee all thou wishes, if thou wilt bring me my ball back again," she said, however. But the silly frog, she, however, thought, "How the silly frog does talk. He lives in the water with the other frogs, and croaks, and can be no companion to any human being." But the frog, when he received this promise, put his head into the water and sank down. In a short while came swimming up again with the ball in his mouth, and threw it on the grass. The king's daughter was delighted to see her pretty plaything once more, and picked it up and ran away with it. "Wait, wait," said the frog, "take me with thee. I can't run as thou can." But what did it avail him to scream his croak after her as loudly as he could? She did not listen to it, but ran home and soon forgot the poor frog, who was forced to go back into his well again. The next day, when she had seated herself at the table with the king and all the courtiers, and was eating from her little golden plate, something came creeping, splish splash, up the marble staircase. And when it got to the top, it knocked at the door and cried, "Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me." "Hello, Erica. Thank you for joining." "I'm reading." She ran to see who was outside, but when she opened the door, there sat the frog in front of it, and she slammed the door to in great haste, sat down to dinner again, and was quite frightened. The king saw plainly that her heart was beating violently, and said, "My child, what art thou so afraid of? Is there perchance a giant outside who wants to carry thee away?" "No," replied she. "It is no giant, but a disgusting frog." "What does a frog want with thee?" "Dear father, yesterday I was in the forest sitting by the well, playing. My golden ball fell into the water, and because I cried so, the frog brought it out again for me, and because he insisted, I promised him he would be my companion. But I never thought he would be able to come out of his water. Now he is outside there and wants to come into me." In the meantime, it knocked a second time and cried, "Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me. Dost thou not know what thou saidst to me yesterday by the cool waters of the fountain? Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me." Then said the king, "That which thou hast promised must thou perform. Go and let him in." She went and opened the door, and the frog hopped in and followed her step by step to her chair. There he sat and cried, "Lift me up beside thee." She delayed until at last the king commanded her to do it. When the frog was once on the chair, he wanted to be on the table, and when he was on the table, he said, "Now push thy little golden plate nearer to me, that we may eat together." She did this, but it was easy to see that she did not do it willingly. The frog enjoyed what he ate, but almost every mouthful she took choked her. At length he said, "I have eaten and am satisfied. Now I am tired. Carry me into thy little room and make thy little silken bed ready, and we will both lie down and go to sleep." The king's daughter began to cry, for she was afraid of the cold frog which she did not like to touch, and which was now to sleep in her pretty, clean little bed. But the king grew angry and said, "He who helped thee when thou wert in trouble ought not afterwards to be despised by thee." So she took hold of the frog with 2 fingers, carried him upstairs, and put him in a corner. But when she was in bed, he crept to her and said, "I am tired. I want to sleep as well as thou. Lift me up, or I shall tell thy father." Then she was terribly angry. She took him up and threw him out with all her might against the wall. "Now, thus will be cried, odious frog," said she. But when he fell down, he was no frog, but a king's son with beautiful, kind eyes. He, by her father's will, was now her dear companion and husband. Then he told her how he had been bewitched by a wicked witch, and how no one could have delivered him from the well but herself, and that tomorrow they would go together into his kingdom. Then they went to sleep, and the next morning when the sun awoke them, a carriage came driving up with 8 white horses, which had white ostrich feathers on their heads, and were harnessed with golden chains, and stood behind the young king's servant. And behind stood the young king's servant, Faithful Henry. Faithful Henry had been so unhappy when his master was changed into a frog that he caused 3 iron bands to be laid around his heart, lest it should burn with grief and sadness. The carriage was to conduct the young king to his kingdom. Faithful Henry helped them both in and placed them behind, and was full of joy because of this deliverance. And when they had driven a part of the way, the king's son heard a cracking behind him as if something had broken. So he turned around and cried, "Henry, the carriage is breaking." "No, master, it is not the carriage. It is a band from my heart, which was put there in my great pain while you were a frog and imprisoned in the well." Again, and once again, while they were on their way, something cracked, and each time the king's son thought the carriage was breaking, but it was only the bands which were springing from the heart of Faithful Henry, because his master was set happy and free. So, sorry for the stumbles. As I put in the description, I'm not the greatest at reading out loud, but, you know, practice makes perfect. I'm also trying not to make too much noise on my desk, but I really need to clean my desk. Next story, Cat and Mouse in Partnership. A certain cat had made the acquaintance of a mouse, and had said so much to her about the great love and friendship she felt for her, that at length the mouse agreed that they should live and keep house together. "But we must make a provision for winter, or else we shall suffer from hunger," said the cat, "and you, little mouse, cannot venture everywhere, or you will be caught in a trap some day." The good advice was followed, and a pot of fat was brought, but they did not know where to put it. I don't know who throws a frog against a wall. Peter Griffin, I guess? And apparently the king's daughter. Supposedly that story is where Princess and the Frog came from. I really don't think so. That was so different from the original story, or from the Disney story. Same thing happens with Snow Queen. Anyway, at length, after much consideration, the cat said, "I know no place where it will be better stored than up in the church, for no one dares take anything away from there. We will set it beneath the altar, and not touch it until we are really in need of it." So the pot was placed in safety, but it was not long before the cat had a great yearning for it, and said to the mouse, "I want to tell you something, little mouse. My cousin has brought a little son into the world, and had asked me to be a godmother. He is white with brown spots, and I am to hold him over the font at the christening. Let me go out today, and you look after the house by yourself." "Yes, yes," answered the mouse, "by all means, go. And if you get anything very good, think of me. I should like a drop of sweet red christening wine, too." All this, however, was untrue. The cat had no cousin, and had not been asked to be a godmother. She went straight to the church, stole to the pot of fat, and began to lick at it, and licked the top of the fat off. Then she took a walk upon the roofs of the town, looked out for opportunities, and then stretched herself in the sun and licked her lips whenever she thought of the pot of fat. And not until it was evening did she return home. "Well, here you are again," said the mouse. "No doubt you have had a merry day." "All went off well," answered the cat. "What name did they give the child?" "Top off," said the cat quite coolly. "Top off?" cried the mouse. "There's a very odd and uncommon name. Is it a usual one in your family?" "What does it signify?" said the cat. "It is no worse than Crumb Stealer, as your children are called." Before long, the cat was seized by another fit of longing. She said to the mouse, "You must do me a favor and once more manage the house for a day alone. I am again asked to be a godmother, and as the child has a white ring around its neck, I cannot refuse." The good mouse consented, but the cat crept behind the town walls to the church and devoured half the pot of fat. "Nothing ever seems so good as what one keeps to oneself," said she. She was quite satisfied with her day's work. When she went home, the mouse inquired, "And what was this child christened?" "Half Done," answered the cat. "Half Done? What are you saying? I've never heard the name in my life. I'll wager anything it is not in the calendar." The cat's mouth soon began to water for some more licking. "All good things go in threes," said she. "I am asked to stand godmother again. The child is quite black. It only has white paws, but with that exception, it has not a single white hair on its whole body. This only happens once every few years. You will let me go, won't you?" "Top off, Half Done," answered the mouse. "They're such odd names that make me very thoughtful." "You sit at home," said the cat, "in your dark gray fur coat and long tail, and are filled with fancies. But that's because you do not go out in the daytime." During the cat's absence, the mouse cleaned the house and put it in order, but the greedy cat entirely emptied the pot of fat. When everything is eaten up, one has some peace, she said to herself, and well filled and fat, she did not return home till night. The mouse at once asked what name had been given to the third child. "It will not please you more than the others," said the cat. "He is called All Gone." "All Gone!" cried the mouse. "That is the most suspicious name of all. I have never seen it in print. All Gone! What can that mean?" And she shook her head, curled herself up, and lay down to sleep. From this time forth, no one invited the cat to be a godmother, but when the winter had come and there was no longer anything to be found outside, the mouse thought of their provision and said, "Come, cat, we will go to our pot of fat which we have stored up for ourselves. We shall enjoy that." "Yes," answered the cat, "you will enjoy it as much as you would enjoy sticking that dainty tongue of yours out of the window." They set out on their way, and when they arrived, the pot of fat certainly was still in its place, but it was empty. "Alas!" said the mouse, "now I see what has happened. Now it comes to light. You are a true friend. You have devoured all when you were standing godmother. First Top off, then Half Done, then—" "Will you hold your tongue?" cried the cat. "One more word and I will eat you too." All Gone was already on the poor mouse's lips. Scarcely had she spoken it before the cat sprang on her, seized her, and swallowed her down. Verily, that is the way of the world. Don't eat your friends. Don't eat your friends. It's not nice. I'm confused about that true friend remark. That's what it says. I didn't misread that. It says you are a true friend. The true friend means something back in the Brothers Grimm times? Like something different? I love how the model reacts to me drinking water. And I just noticed the irony of me reading that story with a cat model. I promise I didn't eat the pot of fat. Don't eat your friends. Quote of the century. Just like, the enemy does not like being set on fire. Yeah, both very good advice. Our Lady's Child is the next story I have here. Hard by a great forest dealt a woodcutter with his wife, who had an only child, a little girl 3 years old. They were so poor, however, that they no longer had daily bread, and did not know how to get food for her. One morning the woodcutter went out sorrowfully to his work in the forest, and while he was cutting wood, suddenly there before him stood a tall and beautiful woman with a crown of shining stars on her head, who said to him, "I am the Virgin Mary, mother of the child Jesus. Thou art poor and needy. Bring thy child to me. I will take her with me and be her mother and care for her." The woodcutter obeyed, brought his child, and gave her to the Virgin Mary, who took her up to heaven with her. There the child fared well, ate sugar cakes, and drank sweet milk, and her clothes were of gold, and the little angels played with her. This got sad quick. This got really sad really quick. And when she was 14 years of age, the Virgin Mary called to her one day and said, "Dear child, I am about to make a long journey, so take into thy keeping the keys of the 13 doors of heaven. 12 of these thou mayst open, and behold the glory in which is within them, but the 13th, to which this little key belongs, is forbidden. Beware opening it, or it will bring misery on thyself." The girl promised to be obedient, and when the Virgin Mary was gone, she began to examine the dwellings of the kingdom of heaven. Each day she opened one of them until she had made the round of the 12. In each one sat one of the apostles amidst a great light. And she rejoiced in the magnificence and splendor, and the little angel who always accompanied her rejoiced with her. Then the forbidden door remained. She felt a great desire to know what could be hidden behind it, and said to the angels, "I will not quite open it, and I will not go inside it, but I will unlock it so we can just see a little through the opening." "Oh no," said the little angels, "that would be a sin. The Virgin Mary has forbidden it, and it might easily cause thy unhappiness." Then she was silent, but the desire in her heart was not stilled, but gnawed there and tormented her, and let her have no rest. And once, when the angels had all gone out, she thought, "Now I am quite alone. I could peep in. If I do it, no one will ever know." She sought out the key, and when she had got it in her hand, she put it in the lock, and when she had put it in, she turned it round as well. Then the door sprang open, and she saw there a Trinity sitting in fire and splendor. She stayed there a while and looked at everything in amazement. Then she touched the light a little with her finger, and her finger became quite golden. Immediately a great fear fell on her. She shut the door violently and ran away. Her terror, too, would not quit her. Let her do what she might, and her heart beat continually, and would not be still. The gold, too, stayed on her finger, and would not go away. Let her rub it and wash it never so much. It was not long before the Virgin Mary came back from her journey. She called the girl before her, and asked to have back the keys of heaven. When the maiden gave her the bunch, the Virgin looked in her eyes, and said, "Hast thou not opened the 13th door also?" "No," she replied. She laid her hand on the girl's heart, and felt how it beat and beat, and saw right well that she had disobeyed her order and had opened the door. Then she said once again, "Art thou certain that thou hast not done it?" "Yes," said the girl for the second time. Then she perceived the finger, which had become golden from touching the fire of heaven, and saw well that the child had sinned, and said for the third time, "Hast thou not done it?" "No," said the girl for the third time. Then said the Virgin Mary, "Thou hast not obeyed me, and besides that thou hast lied. Thou art no longer worthy to be in heaven." And the girl fell into a deep sleep, and when she awoke she lay on the earth below, and in the midst of the wilderness. She wanted to cry out, but could bring forth no sound. She sprang up and wanted to run away, but whether she turned herself, she was continually held back by the thick hedges of thorns through which she could not break. In the desert in which she was imprisoned, there stood an old hollow tree. This had to be her dwelling place. Into this she crept in when light came, and here she slept. Here, too, she found a shelter from the storm and rain, but it was a miserable life, and bitterly did she weep when she remembered how happy she had been in heaven, and how the angels had played with her. Roots and wild berries were her only food, and for these she sought as far as she could go. In the autumn she picked up the fallen nuts and leaves, and carried them into the hole. The nuts were her food in the winter, and when snow and ice came, she crept amongst the leaves like a poor little animal that she might not freeze. Before long her clothes were all torn, and one bit of them after another fell off her. As soon, however, as the sun shone warm again, she went out and sat in front of the tree, and her long hair covered her on all sides like a mantle. Thus she sat year after year, and felt the pain and misery of the world. One day, when the trees were once more clothed in fresh green, the king of the country was hunting in the forest, and followed a roe, and as it had fled into the thicket which shut in this part of the forest, he got off his horse, tore the bushes asunder, and cut himself a path with his sword. When he at last forced his way through, he saw a wonderfully beautiful maiden sitting under the tree, and she sat there, and she was entirely covered with her golden hair down to her very feet. He stood still and looked at her full of surprise. Then he spoke to her and said, "Who art thou? Why art thou sitting here in the wilderness?" But she gave no answer. Oh God, I lost where I am. But she gave no answer, for she could not open her mouth. The king continued, "Wilt thou go with me to my castle?" She just nodded her head a little. The king took her in his arms, carried her to his horse, and rode home with her. And when he reached the royal castle, he caused her to be dressed in beautiful garments and gave her all things in abundance. Although she could not speak, she was still so beautiful and charming that he began to love her with all his heart, and it was not long before he married her. After a year or so had passed, the queen brought a son into the world. Thereupon the Virgin Mary appeared to her in the night, when she did lay in her bed alone, and said, "If thou wilt tell me the truth, and confess that thou didst unlock the forbidden door, I will open thy mouth and give thee back thy speech. But if thou persist in thy sin, and thou deniest obstinately, I will take thy newborn child away with me." Then the queen was permitted to answer, but she remained hard and said, "No, I did not open the forbidden door." And the Virgin Mary took the newborn child from her arms and vanished with it. Kidnapping. Last I checked, kidnapping is a sin. Next morning, when the child was not to be found, it was whispered among the people that the queen was a man-eater and had killed her own child. She heard all of this and could say nothing to the contrary, but the king would not believe it, for he loved her so much. When a year had gone by, the queen again bore a son, and in the night the Virgin Mary again came to her and said, "If thou wilt confess that thou opened the forbidden door, I will give thee thy child back and untie thy tongue. But if you continue in sin and deniest it, I will take away with me this new child also." The Virgin Mary is just a fucking murderer. Then the queen again said, "No, I did not open the forbidden door." And the Virgin took the child out of her arms and away with her to heaven. At this point, this is the girl's fault. Next morning, when this child had also disappeared, people declared quite loudly that the queen had devoured it, and the king's counselors demanded that she should be brought to justice. The king, however, loved her so dearly that he would not believe it, and commended the counselors under pain of death not to say any more about it. The following year, the queen gave birth to a beautiful little daughter, and for the third time, the Virgin Mary appeared to her in the night and said, "Follow me." She took the queen by the hand and led her to heaven, and showed her there her two eldest children, who smiled at her and were playing with the ball of the world. When the queen rejoiced thereat, the Virgin Mary said, "Is thy heart not yet softened? If thou wilt own that thou openest the forbidden door, I will give thee back thy two little sons." But for the third time the queen answered, "No, I did not open the forbidden door." Then the Virgin let her sink down to earth once more, and took from her likewise her third child. Next morning, when the loss was reported abroad, the people cried loudly, "The queen is a man-eater! She must be judged!" And the king was no longer able to restrain his counselors. Thereupon a trial was held, but she could not answer and defend herself. She was condemned to be burnt alive. The wood was got together, and when she was fast bound to the stake, and the fire began to burn round her, the hard ice of pride melted. Her heart was moved by the repentance, and she thought, "If I could but confess before my death that I opened the door." Then her voice came back to her, and she cried out loudly, "Yes, Mary, I did it." And straightway rain fell from the sky and extinguished the flames of fire, and a light broke out above her. The Virgin Mary descended with the two little sons by her side and the newborn daughter in her arms. She spoke kindly to her and said, "He who repents his sin and acknowledges it is forgiven." Then she gave her the three children, untied her tongue, and granted her happiness for her whole life. Yeah, basically. They just assumed, hey, you ate your child. The child's missing, so you must have eaten it. I think the counselors are the insane ones here. Just saying. No. Everyone in this story is insane except for the king. The king's the only sane one here. The kid went missing? Surely the mom is a cannibal. Yeah, only logical explanation. Trying to move my chair and not be too loud. Because, like, if you couldn't guess, this is meant to be kind of like a chilled, fall asleep to it, it's okay type stream, and I don't want to be too loud. Also, if my model was doing anything weird during that story, I was kind of overheating and I took off my shirt, so that's probably why. The cat looks so funny while drinking. Wait. I forgot the disclaimer. Do I really need the disclaimer here? Better safe than sorry, you know? Alright. Overheating is not good. It's the first piece of... Well, I'm not gonna say the first piece of good advice. Don't steal childs. Don't eat your friends. And your enemies don't like being set on fire. That's not good advice. It's a really good advice stream. I can mark it as educational. Yay! Okay, on to the next story. The story of the youth who went forth to learn what fear was. A certain father had two sons, the elder of whom was smart and sensible and could do everything, but the younger was stupid and could neither learn nor understand anything. And when people saw him, they said, "There's a fellow who will give his father some trouble." When anything had to be done, it was always the elder who was forced to do it. But if his father bade him to fetch anything when it was late or in the night time, and the way led through the churchyard or any other dismal place, he answered, "Oh no, father, I will not go there. It makes me shudder," for he was afraid. For when stories... did I skip a page? No, I didn't. Or when stories were told by the fire at night, which made the flesh creep. The listeners sometimes said, "Oh, it makes us shudder." The younger sat in the corner and listened with the rest of them, and could not imagine what they could mean. They're always saying, "It makes me shudder, it makes me shudder." "It does not make me shudder," thought he. "That too must be an art of which I understand nothing." Now it came to pass that his father said to him one day, "Hearken to me, thou fellow in the corner there. Thou art growing tall and strong, and thou must learn something by which thou canst earn thy living. Look how thy brother works, but thou dost not even earn thy salt." "Well, father," he replied, "I am quite willing to learn something. Indeed, if it could be but managed. I would like to learn how to shudder. I don't understand that at all yet." The elder brother smiled when he heard that and thought to himself, "Good God, what a blockhead that brother of mine is." Oh boy, I lost it. "He will never be good for anything as long as he lives. He who wants to be a sickle must bend themselves betimes." The father sighed and answered him, "Thou shalt learn soon what it is to shudder, but thou wilt not earn thy bread by that." Soon after, the sexton came to the house on a visit, and the father bewailed his trouble, and told him how his younger son was just so backward in every respect that he knew nothing and learnt nothing. "Just think," said he, "when I asked him how he was going to earn his bread, he actually wanted to learn to shudder." "If that be all," replied the sexton, "he can learn that with me. Send him to me, and I will soon polish him." The father was glad to do it, for he thought, "This will train the boy a little." The sexton therefore took him into his house, and he had to ring the bell. After a day or two, the sexton awoke him at midnight, and bade him to arise and go up into the church tower and ring the bell. "Thou shalt soon learn what shuddering is," thought he, and secretly went there before him. And when the boy was at the top of the tower and turned around, and was just going to take hold of the bell rope, he saw a white figure standing on the stairs opposite of the sounding hole. "Who is there?" cried he, but the figure made no reply, and did not move or stir. "Give an answer," cried the boy, "or take thyself off. Thou hast no business here at night." The sexton, however, remained standing motionless, that the boy might think he was a ghost. The boy cried a second time, "What do you want here? Speak if thou art an honest fellow, or I will throw thee down the steps." The sexton thought, "He can't intend to be as bad as his words," uttered no sound, and stood there as if he were made of stone. Then the boy called to him for a third time, and as that was also to no purpose, he ran against him and pushed the ghost down the stairs, so that it fell 10 steps and remained lying there in a corner. Thereupon he rang the bell, went home, and without saying a word went to bed and fell asleep. The sexton's wife waited a long time for her husband, but he did not come back. At length she became uneasy and wakened the boy and asked, "Dost thou not know where my husband is? He climbed up the tower before thou did." "No, I don't know," replied the boy, "but someone was standing at the sounding hole on the other side of the steps, and as he would neither give an answer nor go away, I took him for a scoundrel and threw him downstairs. Just go there and you will see if it was he. I should be sorry if it were. Should be sorry." The woman ran away and found her husband, who was lying moaning in a corner and had broken his leg. She carried him down, and then with loud screams she hastened to the boy's father. "Your boy," cried she, has been the cause of great misfortune. He has thrown my husband down the steps, then made him break his leg. Take the good-for-nothing fellow away from our house." The father was terrified and ran thither and scolded the boy. "What wicked tricks are these?" said he. "The devil must have put this into thy head." "Father," he replied, "do listen to me. I am quite innocent. He was standing there by night like one who is intending to do some evil. I did not know who it was, and I entreated him 3 times either to speak or to go away." "Ah," said the father, "I have nothing but unhappiness with you. Go out of my sight, and I will see thee no more." "Yes, father, right willingly. Wait only until it is day, then I will go forth and learn how to shudder, and then I shall, at any rate, understand once art which would support me." "Learn what thou wilt," spake the father. "It is all the same to me. Here are 50 thalers for thee. Take these and go into the wide world, and tell no one from whence thou come, and who is thy father, for I have reason to be ashamed of thee." "Yes, father, it shall be as you will, and if you desire nothing more than that, I can easily keep it in mind." When day dawned, therefore, the boy put his 50 thalers into his pocket, and went forth onto the great highway, and continually said to himself, "If I could but shudder! If I could but shudder!" Then a man approached him who heard this conversation which the youth was holding with himself, and when they had walked a little further to where they could see the gallows, the man said to him, "Look, there is a tree where 7 men have married the rope-maker's daughter, and now are learning how to fly. Sit down below it and wait till night comes, and you will soon learn how to shudder." "If that is all that is wanted," answered the youth, "it is easily done. But if I learn how to shudder as fast as that, thou shalt have my 50 thalers. Just come back to me early in the morning." Then the youth went to the gallows, sat down below it, and waited till evening came. And as he was cold, he lighted himself a fire. But at midnight the wind blew so sharply that in spite of his fire he could not get warm. And as the wind knocked the hanged men around against each other, then they moved backwards and forwards, he thought to himself, "Thou shiverest below by the fire, but how those above me must freeze and suffer." And as he felt pity for them, he raised the ladder and climbed up, unbound one of them after the other, and brought down all 7. Then he stirred the fire, blew it, and set them all round it to warm themselves. But they sat there and did not stir, and the fire caught their clothes, so he said, "Take care, or I will hang you up again." The dead men, however, did not hear, and were quite silent, and let their rags go on burning. On this he grew angry and said, "If you will not take care, I cannot help you. I will not be burned with you." And he hung them up again, each in this turn, when he sat down by his fire and fell asleep. And the next morning the man came to him and wanted to have the 50 thalers, and said, "Well, dost thou know how to shudder?" "No," answered he. "How was I to get to know? Those fellows up there did not open their mouths. They were so stupid that they let the few old rags which they had on their bodies get burnt." When the man saw that he would not get the 50 thalers that day, he went away saying, "One of this kind has never come my way before." The youth likewise went his way, and once more began to mutter to himself, "Ah, if I could shudder! Ah, if I could but shudder!" The wagoner, who was striding behind him, heard that and asked, "Who are you?" It's a long story. One second. Trying to figure out some way to hold the pages like down after I turn them. That was loud. Okay, there we go. "I don't know," answered the youth. Then the wagoner asked, "From whence comest thou?" I know not." "Who is thy father?" "That I may not tell thee." "Ah, what is that art always muttering between thy teeth?" "What is it that thou art always muttering between thy teeth?" "Ah," replied the youth, "I do so wish I could shudder, but no one can teach me how to do it." Give up thy foolish chatter, said the wagoner. Come, go with me. I will see about a place for thee. The youth went with the wagoner, and in the evening they arrived at an inn where they wished to pass the night. Then at the entrance of the room the youth again said quite loudly, If I could but shudder! If I could but shudder! The host who heard this laughed and said, If that is your desire, there ought to be a good opportunity for you here. Ah, be silent, said the hostess. So many inquisitive persons have already lost their lives. It would be a pity and such a shame if such beautiful eyes as these should never see the daylight again. But the youth said, However difficult it may be, I will learn it, and for this purpose indeed I have journeyed forth. He let the host have no rest until the latter told him that not far from thence stood a haunted castle where anyone could easily learn what shuddering was, if he could but watch in it for 3 nights. The king had promised that he who would venture should have his daughter to wife, and she was the most beautiful maiden the sun shone on. Great treasures likewise stay in the castle, which were guarded by evil spirits. These treasures would then be freed and would make a poor man rich enough. Already many men had gone into the castle, but as yet none had come out again. Then the youth went the next morning to the king and asked if he were allowed, he would watch 3 nights in the haunted castle. The king looked at him, and as the youth pleased him, he said, Thou mayest ask for 3 things to take into the castle with thee, but they must be 3 things without life. Then he answered, Then I ask for a fire, a turning lathe, and a cutting board with a knife. The king had these things carried into the castle for him during the day. When the night was drawing near, the youth went up and made himself a bright fire in one of the rooms, and placed the cutting board and knife beside it. He seated himself by the turning lathe. Ah, if I could but shudder, said he, but I shall not learn it here either. Towards midnight, he was about to poke his fire, and as he was blowing it, something cried suddenly from one corner, Oh, meow! How cold we are! You simpletons, cried he, what are you crying about? If you are cold, come and take a seat by the fire and warm yourselves. And when he said that, 2 great black cats came with one tremendous leap and sat down on each side of him and looked savagely at him with their fiery eyes. After a short time, when they had warmed themselves, they said, Comrade, shall we have a game at cards? Why not, he replied, but just show me your paws. Then they stretched out their claws. Oh, said he, what long nails you have. Wait, I must first cut them for you. Thereupon he seized them by the throats, put them on the cutting board, and screwed their feet fast. I have looked at your fingers, said he, and my fancy card playing is gone. And he struck them dead and threw them out into the water. But when he had made away with these 2, and was about to sit down again by the fire, out from every hole and corner came black cats and black dogs with red-hot chains, and more of them came until he could no longer stir, and they yelled horribly and got on his fire, pulled it to pieces, and tried to put it out. He watched them for a while quietly, but at last, when they were going too far, he seized his cutting knife and cried, Away with ye, vermin, and began to cut them down. Part of them ran away, the others he killed and threw out into the fish pond. Take a drink here. When he came back, he fanned the embers of his fire again and warmed himself. And as he thus sat, his eyes would keep open no longer, as he felt a desire to sleep. Then he looked around and saw a great bed in the corner. That is the very thing for me, said he, and got into it. When he was just going to shut his eyes, however, the bed began to move of its own accord and went over the whole of the castle. That's right, said he, but go faster. Then the bed rolled on as if 6 horses were harnessed to it, up and down over thresholds and steps. But suddenly, hop, hop! It turned over upside down and lay on him like a mountain. But he threw quilts and pillows up in the air, got out and said, "Now, anyone who likes may drive," and lay down by his fire and slept till it was day. In the morning the king came, and when he saw him lying there on the ground, he thought evil spirits had killed him and he was dead. Then he said, "After all, it is a pity. He is a handsome man." The youth heard it, got up and said, "It has not come to that yet." Then the king was astonished, but very glad, and asked how he had fared. "Very well indeed," answered he. "One night is past, the 2 others will get over likewise." Then he went to the innkeeper, who opened his eyes very wide and said, "I never expected to see thee alive again. Hast thou learnt how to shudder yet?" "No," said he, "it is all in vain. If someone would but tell me." The second night he again went into the old castle, sat down by the fire, and once more began his old song, "If I could but shudder." When midnight came, an uproar and a noise of tumbling about was heard. It was at first it was low, but it grew louder and louder, and it was quiet for a while, and at length with a loud scream, half a man came down the chimney and fell before him. "Hello!" cried he, "another half belongs to this. This is too little." Then the uproar began again. There was a roaring and a howling, and the other half fell down likewise. "Wait," said he, "I will just blow up the fire a little for thee." When he had done that, and then looked around again, the 2 pieces were joined together, and a frightful man was sitting in its place. "This is no part of our bargain," said the youth. "The bench is mine." The man wanted to push him away. The youth, however, would not allow that, but thrust him off with all his strength and seated himself again in his own place. Then still more men fell down, one after the other. They brought 9 dead men's legs and 2 skulls and set them up and played at 9-pins with them. The youth also wanted to play and said, "Hark, you! Can I join you?" "Yes, if thou hast any money." "Money enough," replied he, "but your balls are not quite round." Then he took the skulls and put them in the lathe and turned them around till they were round. "There, they will roll better," said he. "Hurrah! Now it goes merrily." He played with them and lost some of his money, but when it struck 12, everything vanished from his sight. He lay down quietly and fell asleep. Next morning the king came to inquire after him. "How hast it fared with you this time?" said he. "I have been playing at 9-pins," he answered, "and have lost a couple farthings." "Hast thou not shuddered then?" What? I have made merry. If I did but know what it was to shudder." The third night he sat down again on his bench and said quite sadly, "If I could but shudder." When it grew late, 6 tall men came in and brought a coffin. Then said he, "Ha ha! That is certainly my little cousin, who died only a few days ago." And he beckoned with his finger and cried, "Come, little cousin, come." They placed the coffin on the ground, and he went to it and took the lid off, and a dead man lay therein. He felt his face, but it was cold as ice. "Stop," said he, "I will warm thee a little," and went to the fire and warmed his head and laid it on the dead man's face. But he remained cold. Then he took him out, sat down by the fire, and laid him on his breast and rubbed his arms that the blood might circulate again. As this also did no good, he thought to himself, "When 2 people lie in bed together, they warm each other." He carried him to the bed, covered him over, and lay down by him. After a short time, the dead man became warm too, and began to move. Then said the youth, "See, little cousin, have I not warmed thee?" The dead man, however, got up and cried, "Now I will strangle thee." "What?" said he. "Is that the way thou thinkest me? Thou shalt at once go into thy coffin again." And he took him up, threw him into it, and shut the lid. Then came the 6 men and carried him away again. I cannot manage to shudder, said he. I will never learn it here as long as I live. Then a man entered who was taller than all the others and looked terrible. He was old, however, and had a long white beard. Thou wretch, cried he, thou shalt soon learn what it is to shudder, for thou shalt die. Not so fast, replied the youth. If I am to die, I shall have a say in it. I will soon seize thee, said the fiend. Softly, softly, do not talk so big. I am as strong as thou art, and perhaps even stronger. We shall see, said the old man. If thou art stronger, I will let thee go. Come, we will try. Then he led him by the dark passages to a smith's forge, took an axe, and with one blow struck an anvil into the ground. I can do better than that, said the youth, and went to the other anvil. The old man placed himself near and wanted to look on, and his white beard hung down. Then the youth seized the axe, split the anvil with one blow, and struck the old man's beard in with it. Now I have thee, said the youth, and now it is thou who will have to die. Then he seized an iron bar and beat the old man till he moaned and entreated him to stop, and he would give him great riches. The youth drew out the axe and let him go. The old man led him back into the castle and into a cellar, and in the cellar showed him 3 chests full of gold. Of these, said he, one part is for the poor, the other is for the king, the third is thine. In the meantime it struck 12, and the spirit disappeared. The youth, therefore, was left in darkness. I shall still be able to find my way out, said he, and felt about, found the way into the room, and slept there by his fire. Next morning the king came up and said, Thou must have learned what shuddering is. No, he answered. What can it be? My dead cousin was here, and a bearded man came and showed me a great deal of money down below, but no one has told me what it is to shudder. Then, said the king, thou hast to live at the castle, and thou shalt marry my daughter. That is all very well, said he, but I still do not know what it is to shudder. Then the gold was brought up, and the wedding celebrated. But however much the young king loved his wife, and however happy he was, he still always said, If I could but shudder, if I could but shudder. And at last she was angry at this. Her waiting maid said, I will find a cure for him, and soon he shall learn what it is to shudder. She went out to the stream which flowed through the garden, and had a whole bucket full of gudgeons brought to her. At night, when the young king was sleeping, his wife was to draw the clothes off him and empty the bucket of cold water with the gudgeons in it over him, so that the little fishes would sprawl about him. When this was done, he woke up and cried, Oh, what makes me shudder so? What makes me shudder so, dear wife? Ah, now I know what it is to shudder. This man's a psychopath. I'm just gonna say, so I'm so glad that you two are still around. Yes, your balls aren't good enough was such a good roast. Yes. That one message is the perfect descriptor for the entire story. What? Oh my god. Ugh. Now, I'm going to flip to what has always been my favorite of the Brothers Grimm stories. It's also kind of long, but that's okay. I'm probably gonna call it after this story. So, it's good that it's kind of long. There was once a woman who had... Wait, I forgot to chat. The lesson here is to not strip your sleeping husband naked and dump a bucket of fish on him. What the fuck? That's the lesson you got from that story? That's the lesson? That's your only takeaway from the entire story? Really? Oh my. Gonna get some more water, I think. Alright. And my next and last story for the night is One Eye, Two Eyes, Three Eyes. It was always one of my childhood favorite. You'll get a bucket of fish and do what with it? Dump it on yourself? See, here's the funny part. I don't have a husband. Okay, anyway, back to what I was saying. Yeah, I'm with Erica here. Oh boy. This was one of my favorite Brothers Grimm stories, like, of all time, because I have good memories with it. That's smart, Erica. That's smart. Okay, I'm getting to the story now. I swear. I'll stop getting distracted by chat. There was once a woman who had 3 daughters, the eldest of whom was called One Eye. The eldest of whom was called One Eye because she had only one eye in the middle of her forehead, and the second, Two Eyes, because she had 2 eyes like other folks, and the youngest, Three Eyes, because she had 3 eyes, and her third eye was also in the center of her forehead. However, as Two Eyes saw just as other human beings did, her sister and her mother could not endure her. They said, "Thou, with thy 2 eyes, art no better than the common people. Thou dost not belong to us." They pushed her about and threw old clothes to her and gave her nothing to eat but what they left, and did everything they could to make her unhappy. It came to pass that Two Eyes had to go out into the fields and tend the goat, but she was still quite hungry because her sisters had given her so little to eat. So she sat down on the ridge and began to weep, and so bitterly that 2 streams ran down from her eyes. And when she looked up in her grief, a woman was standing beside her who said, "Why art thou weeping, little Two Eyes?" Two Eyes answered, "Have I not reason to weep, when I have 2 eyes like other people, and my sisters and mother hate me for it, and push me from one corner to another, throw old clothes at me, and give me nothing to eat but the scraps they leave. Today they have given me so little that I am still quite hungry." Then the wise woman said, "Wipe away thy tears, Two Eyes, and I will tell thee something to stop thee ever suffering from hunger again. Just say to thy goat, 'Bleat, my little goat, bleat. Cover the table with something to eat.' And then a clean, well-spread little table will stand before thee, with the most delicious food upon it, of which thou mayest eat as much as thou art inclined for. And when thou hast had enough, and hast no more need for the little table, just say, 'Bleat, my little goat, I pray. Take the little table quite away.' And then it will vanish again from thy sight." Hereupon the wise woman departed, but Two Eyes thought, "I must instantly make a trial to see if what she said is true, for I am far too hungry." She said, "Bleat, my little goat, bleat. Cover the table with something to eat." And scarcely had she spoken the words than a little table covered with a white cloth was standing there, and on it was a plate with a knife and fork, and a silver spoon, and the most delicious food was there also, warm and smoking as if it had just come out of the kitchen. Then Two Eyes said the shortest prayer she knew, "Lord God be with us always, amen," and helped herself to some food, and enjoyed it. And when she was satisfied, she said, as the wise woman had taught her, "Bleat, my little goat, bleat, 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 my little goat, I pray, and take the table quite away." And immediately the little table and everything on it was gone again. "That's a delightful way of keeping house," thought Two Eyes, and was quite glad and happy. In the evening, when she went home with her goat, she found a small earthenware dish with some food, which her sisters had set ready for her, but she did not touch it. Next day she went out again with her goat, and left the few bits of broken bread which had been handed to her lying untouched. The first and second time that she did this, her sisters did not remark it at all, but as it happened every time, they did observe it, and said, "There's something wrong about Two Eyes. She always leaves her food untasted. She used to eat up everything that was given to her. She must have discovered other ways of getting food." In order that they might learn the truth, they resolved to send One Eye with Two Eyes when she went to drive her goat to the pasture to observe what Two Eyes did when she was there, and whether anyone brought her anything to eat and drink. So when Two Eyes set out next time, One Eye went with her and said, "I will go with you to the pasture and see that the goat is well taken care of and driven where there is food." But Two Eyes knew what was in One Eye's mind. She drove the goat into high grass and said, "Come, One Eye, we will sit down, and I will sing something to you." One Eye sat down and was tired with the unaccustomed walk in the heat of the sun, and Two Eyes sang constantly, "One Eye, sleepest thou? One Eye, sleepest thou?" until One Eye shut her eye and fell asleep. And as soon as Two Eyes saw that One Eye was fast asleep, she could discover nothing. She said, "Bleat, my little goat, bleat, cover the table with something to eat," and seated herself at a table, and ate and drank until she was satisfied. Then she again cried, bleat, bleat, my little goat, I pray, take the table quite away." And in an instant it was all gone. Two Eyes now awakened One Eye and said, "One Eye, you want to take care of the goat and go to sleep while you were doing it, and in the meantime the goat might run all over the world. Come, let us come home again." So they went home, and again Two Eyes let her little dish stand untouched, and One Eye could not tell her mother why, as she would not eat it. And to excuse herself, she said, "I fell asleep when I was out." The next day the mother said to Three Eyes, "This time thou shalt go and observe if Two Eyes eats anything while she was out, and if anyone fetches her food and drink, for she must eat and drink in secret." So Three Eyes went to Two Eyes and said, "I will go with you and see if the goat is taken proper care of and driven where there is food." But Two Eyes knew what was in Three Eyes' mind and drove the goat into high grass and said, "We will sit down and I will sing something to you, Three Eyes." Three Eyes sat down and was tired with the walk and the heat of the sun, and Two Eyes began the same song as before and sang, "Three Eyes, are you are you waking?" But then, instead of singing, "Three Eyes, are you sleeping?" as she ought have done, she thoughtlessly sang, "Two Eyes, are you sleeping?" and sang all the time, "Three Eyes, are you waking? Two Eyes, are you sleeping?" Then two of the eyes which Three Eyes had shut and fell asleep, but the third, as it had not been named in the song, did not sleep. Is it true that Three Eyes shut it? It is true that Three Eyes shut it, but only in her cunning to pretend that it was asleep too. But it blinked and could see everything very well. And when Two Eyes thought that Three Eyes was fast asleep, she used her little charm. "Bleat, my little goat, bleat, cover the table with something to eat," and ate and drank as much as her heart desired, and then ordered the table to go away again. "Bleat, bleat, my little goat, I pray, take the table quite away." And Three Eyes had seen everything. Then Two Eyes came to her, waked her, and said, "Have you been asleep, Three Eyes? You are not a good caretaker. Come, we will go home." And when they got home, Two Eyes again did not eat, and Three Eyes said to the mother, "Now I know why that high-minded thing does not eat. When she is out, she says to the goat, 'Bleat, my little goat, bleat, cover cover the table with something to eat, and then a little table appears before her, covered with the best of food, much better than any we have here. And when she has eaten all she wants, she says, "Bleat, bleat, my little goat, I pray," and take the table quite away, and all disappears. I watched everything closely. She put 2 of my eyes to sleep by using a certain form of words, but luckily the one in my forehead kept awake. Then the envious mother cried, "Dost thou want to fare better than we do? The desire shall pass away." And she fetched a butcher's knife and thrust it into the heart of the goat, which fell down dead. When Two Eyes saw that, she went out full of trouble, seated herself on the ridge of grass at the edge of the field, and wept bitter tears. Suddenly the wise woman once more stood by her side and said, "Two Eyes, why art thou weeping?" "Have I not reason to weep?" she answered. "The goat which covered the table for me every day when I spoke your charm has been killed by my mother, and now I shall again have to bear hunger and want." The wise woman said, "Two Eyes, I will give thee a piece of good advice. Ask thy sisters to give thee the entrails of the slaughtered goat, and bury them in the ground in front of the house, and thy fortune will be made." Then she vanished, and Two Eyes went home and said to her sisters, "Dear sisters, do give me some part of my goat. I don't wish for what is good, but give me the entrails." Then they laughed and said, "If that's all you want, you can have it." So Two Eyes took the entrails and buried them quietly in the evening in front of the house door, as the wise woman had counseled her to do so. Next morning, when they all awoke and went to the house door, there stood a strangely magnificent tree with leaves of silver and fruit of gold hanging among them, so that in all the wide world there was nothing more beautiful or precious. They did not know how the tree could have come up there during the night, but Two Eyes saw that it had grown up out of the entrails of the goat, for it was standing on the exact spot where she had buried them. Then the mother said to One Eye, "Climb up, child, and gather some of the fruit for the 3 of us. Some of the fruit of the tree for us." One Eye climbed up, but when she was about to get hold of one of the golden apples, the branch escaped from her hands, and that happened each time, so that she could not pluck a single apple, let her do what she might. Then said the mother, "Three Eyes, do you climb up. You, with your 3 eyes, can look about you better than One Eye." One Eye slipped down, and 3 Eyes climbed up. One Eye was not more skillful, and might search as she liked, but the golden apples always escaped her. At length the mother grew impatient and climbed up herself, but could get a hold of the fruit no better than One Eye or 3 Eyes, for she always clutched empty air. Then said 2 Eyes, "I will just go up. Perhaps I may succeed better." The sisters cried, "You indeed, with your 2 eyes? What can you do?" But 2 Eyes climbed up, and the golden apples did get out of her way. Did not get out of her way. They came into her hand of their own accord, so that she could pluck them one after the other, and brought a whole apronful down with her. The mother took them away from her, and instead of treating poor 2 Eyes any better than this, she and One Eye and 3 Eyes were only envious, because 2 Eyes alone had been able to get the fruit, and they treated her still more cruelly. It so befell that once they were all standing together by the tree, a young knight came up. "Quick, 2 Eyes," cried the sisters, "creep under this, and don't disgrace us." And with all speed they turned an empty barrel which was standing close by the tree over poor 2 Eyes. They pushed the golden apples which she had been gathering under it too. When the knight came nearer the tree, he was a handsome lord, who stopped and admired the magnificent gold and silver tree, and said to the 2 sisters, "To whom does this fine tree belong? Anyone who would bestow one branch of it on me might in return for it ask whatever he desired." Then One Eye and 3 Eyes replied that the tree belonged to them, and that they would give him a branch. They both took great trouble, but they were not able to do it, for the branches and fruit both moved away from them every time. Then said the knight, "It is very strange that the tree should belong to you, and that you shall not be able to break a piece off." They again asserted that the tree was their property. While they were saying so, Two Eyes rolled out a couple of golden apples from under the barrel to the feet of the knight, for she was vexed with One Eye and Three Eyes for not speaking the truth. When the knight saw the apples, he was astonished and asked where they came from. One Eye and Three Eyes answered that they had another sister who was not allowed to show herself, for she had only two eyes like any common person. The knight, however, desired to see her and cried, "Two Eyes, come forth!" Then Two Eyes, quite comforted, came from beneath the barrel, and the knight was surprised at her great beauty and said, "Thou, Two Eyes, canst certainly break off the branch from the tree for me?" "Yes," replied Two Eyes, "that I certainly shall be able to do, for the tree belongs to me." And she climbed up with the greatest of ease, broke off a branch with beautiful silver leaves and golden fruit, and gave it to the knight. Then the knight said, "Two Eyes, what shall I give thee for it?" "Alas," answered Two Eyes, "I suffer from hunger and thirst, grief and want, from early morning till late night. If you would take me with you and deliver me from these things, I should be so happy." So the knight lifted Two Eyes onto his horse and took her home with him to his father's castle, and there he gave her beautiful clothes and meat to drink to her heart's content. And he loved her so much that he married her, and the wedding was solemnized with great rejoicing. When Two Eyes was thus carried away by the handsome knight, her two sisters grudged her good fortune in downright earnest. "The wonderful tree, however, still remains with us," thought they, "and even if we can gather no fruit from it, still everyone will stand still and look at it and come to us to admire it, and who knows what good things may be in store for us." The next morning the tree had vanished, and all their hopes were at an end. And when Two Eyes looked out the window of her own little room, to her great delight it was standing in front of it, and so it had followed her. Two Eyes lived a long time in happiness. Once two poor women came to her in her castle and begged for alms. She looked in their faces and recognized their sisters, One Eye and Three Eyes, who had fallen into such poverty that they had to wander about and beg for their bread from door to door. Two Eyes, however, made them welcome, and was kind to them and took care of them, so that they both, with their hearts, repented of the evil that they had done to their sister in their youth. It's kind of a sad story for a bit, but it's still my favorite. I have good memories of this story. Yeah, that's all. That's all I have in store for tonight. Hopefully it was enjoyable and I didn't do too bad. Yeah, that's it. Remember to be kind to yourselves, be kind to others. I love you all, and good night.